Urgent health warning, as drinking water left in your car could be poisoning your body slowly over time. You know, obviously, I'm pretty sure it's talking about plastic water bottles. Yeah, drinking from plastic water bottles left in vehicles. Yeah, obviously, you know, most people, you know, could cut out water bottles they leave in their car. But the first thing that comes to mind for me is when they ship this water, there's no way they're climate controlling those 18-wheeler trucks filled with pallets of just bottled water, right? I really have a hard time believing that they're temperature controlling those, at least on any mass scale. That is the exact kind of product they just like, yeah, let's just let it bake in the truck. We don't need to spend the money cooling that stuff. And so I wonder if this sort of contamination that they're talking about sort of applies to almost every water bottle you'd buy in a major grocery store because of the amount of time it's spent in transit baking in a 100-degree 18-wheeler semi-truck. Drinking water from plastic water bottles left in vehicles could slowly poison the body, health experts warn. Research shows up to 80% of bottled water on the market today contains microplastics and other undisclosed substances linked to a host of ailments, including cancer, fertility problems, developmental delays in children, and metabolic disorders like diabetes. And studies have shown that heat exposure, which can... Wait, they're saying that there's a link between bottled water and metabolic disorders like diabetes. I wonder if it's like a correlation, not a causation thing, right? I can imagine weird things that I just have a hard time thinking that the microplastics are straight up causing diabetes like that. I wonder if in this case it's more of a correlation sort of thing where like the kind of person that only drinks out of water bottles is maybe the kind of person that doesn't have the healthiest other eating habits. So maybe they're more prone to diabetes. I don't know. I need to look at the details of the study in specific. And studies have shown that heat exposure, which can occur in vehicles without air conditioning running or in warm weather, can accelerate these toxic effects. One study by researchers at Nanjing University in China exposed plastic water bottles to 4 weeks of intense heat at 158 degrees Fahrenheit. After the heat exposure, the researchers found that the plastic water bottles made from polyethylene terephthalate had leached antimony, a toxic heavy metal, and bisphenol A, BPA, into the water. Exposure to antimony can cause headaches, dizziness, nausea, and vomiting, abdominal pain, and loss of sleep, while long-term effects can include inflammation of the lungs and stomach ulcers. Meanwhile, bisphenol A has been linked to cancer, fertility issues, autism, cardiovascular complications, and even early death. See, yeah, even I have heard of the carcinogenic effects of BPA. That's been pretty widely spread at this point. After just 20 minutes on an 80-degree Fahrenheit day, the CDC says the inside of a car can hit 109 degrees Fahrenheit. After 40 minutes, it hits 118 degrees Fahrenheit, and after an hour, it can rise to 123 degrees Fahrenheit. Following their investigation, Nanjing University advised against storing plastic water bottles in warm temperatures, as the release of antimony and BPA increased with the storage temperature, especially at 158 degrees Fahrenheit. Another study in 2023 found similar results. They discovered that 4 common plastics, including polyethylene, released microparticles and nanoparticles when they were heated to 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Control samples that were kept in a dark 40-degree Fahrenheit refrigerator, however, released few to no particles. One recent study found that no matter what the brand, bottles of plastic water contain hundreds of thousands of toxic microplastic plastic particles. Oh, that was quite the mouthful. Hundreds of thousands of toxic microplastic plastic particles. It almost feels like a tongue twister. It feels like a tongue twister that I'm just nailing. Scientists using the most advanced laser scanning techniques found an average of 240,000 plastic particles in a 1-liter bottle of water, compared to 5.5 per 1 liter of tap water. Columbia University researchers tested 3 popular brands. Wow, that's insane. 240,000 particles of plastic particles in 1 liter of bottled water, but only 5.5 for tap water. That scale is insane. That's 5.5 to 240,000 is a scale that I even far surpass what I would have ever been able to guess. Columbia University researchers tested 3 popular brands of water bottles sold in the US and, using lasers, analyzed the plastic particles they contained down to just 100 nanometers in size. The particles nanoplastics are much smaller than the microplastics previously detected in bottled water. However, the particles are considered potentially toxic because they are so small that they can enter directly into blood cells and the brain. These microplastic particles carry phthalates, chemicals that make plastics more durable, flexible, and last longer. Phthalate exposure is attributed to 100,000 premature deaths in the US each year. The chemicals are known to interfere with hormone production in the body. Phthalate exposure is attributed to 100,000 premature deaths in the US each year. That is insanity, bro. I would love to see the breakdown of like where those because like obviously that 100,000 is not coming from the water bottles they're talking about, right? It's coming from, I'm assuming, more acute exposures of phthalate. And 100,000 is so high per year. And so maybe after this article, I'll look up to see what the heck it's talking about, because I would love to see a more detailed breakdown of where that 100,000, where the phthalate exposure comes from for these 100,000 people that they say die a year from it. And just in the US, not even in the world, in the US. That's insane. They are linked with developmental, reproductive, brain, immune, and other problems, according to the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. The highest estimates found 370,000 particles. While humans can't see chemicals and microplastics with the naked eye, research is increasingly showing they have a big impact on our health. These toxins are estimated to cost the U.S. healthcare system about $290 million per year, as they have been linked to everything from birth defects to cancer, dementia to asthma, and infertility to children's behavioral and learning difficulties. Microplastics smaller than 1 micrometer, known as nanoplastics, are of most concern, as research has shown they can infiltrate cells. Studies have revealed that microplastics can cause DNA damage and changes in gene activity known to trigger cancer. A recent study out of Jarrah University of Medical Science in Iran found that microplastics were found in all colorectal cancer tissue samples studied. The accumulation of these substances was higher in cancerous tissues compared to controls. Based on the findings, health experts across the board have called for policymakers and industry leaders to take immediate action. Researchers from London-based Deep Science Ventures warned after they conducted an eight-month investigation into the impact of chemical exposure on human health. Based on our findings, failure to act decisively will likely lead to irreversible consequences for both human health and the delicate balance of our planet's ecosystems. Policymakers should consider the impact of toxicity on fertility, especially as many countries are struggling to boost it using expensive other incentives. This is important because human and planetary health is at stake. For us to ensure our continued development and ability to thrive as a human species, we have to accelerate the growth of innovative technological solutions to ensure these are funded and scaled at pace. According to the International Bottled Water Association, I wonder what they're about to say, Americans drink some 15 billion gallons of bottled water each year, around 45 gallons per person. Oh, I thought they was going to have some bit of the American Bottled Water Association refuting these claims or something. Sort of like how, when the first studies about anti-smoking came out, the smoking companies immediately came out and were like, no, actually, smoking doesn't cause cancer. You guys are crazy. But yeah, when I read this article, the first thing that comes to mind is, maybe all plastic water bottles, practically all plastic water bottles, disposable ones, are contaminated in such a way because the huge amounts of time they spend in un-air-conditioned, 100-plus degree 18-wheeler semi-trucks, right? These things are shipped by the pallet, by the ton, by the truckload all across the country, and they spend days and days in transit oftentimes. I wonder if practically all water bottles in the US are contaminated in this sort of way. Now, obviously, contaminated doesn't, what does that mean, right? You have to have a threshold because, it says 240,000 plastic particles in a 1 liter bottle of water. We can agree that's contaminated, but it says 5.5 particles per 1 liter of tap water, which I think most of us would say like, okay, that's low enough. We're not going to consider that contaminated, right? Because removing, going to literally zero point 0.0 is going to be like actually impossible. So, there is a sort of threshold that you need to, arbitrary threshold you need to draw the line at which you consider is contaminated. But it definitely, I wonder where we would agree that line is, and I wonder how much of the U.S. disposable water bottle supply would be above that contaminated threshold that we would draw or whatever. As a result of, like what I said, the water sitting in unconditioned 18-wheeler semi-trucks for days and weeks on end.